Welcome to Suffering in Silence with Pastor Tia here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay family, we're continuing to rise out of the ashes together. On tonight, we're continuing a conversation about stalking. We have with us our co-host, Nicole Tillman. Mark Daria is going to be joining us, Minister Ayana Marks, and we have with us Jennifer Peterkin, the host of The Human Experience. We want to start with just greeting our listeners and viewers on tonight. So, Nicole, I'm going to ask if you would go first, and then after we get through with the greetings, Nicole is going to go through our resources and give us our working definition for tonight.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Tillman. I don't know, I'm a lot of things, but welcome to the topic tonight. I'm an up and coming author and podcast host, and currently a minister and prophetess. And I have a worship service that I host monthly called Sacred Spaces that is open to the public. So that is me. On to the next.
Awesome. And for more information on Sacred Spaces, how can you be reached?
They can reach out to me through social media, Facebook, just my name, Nicole Tillman. Instagram is Nikki Tilly, NIKKITILLY, and they can reach me there.
And Tillman is TILLMAN.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Jen, if you would greet our listeners and viewers on tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, Love Bay. Glad to be back once again in 2026. I can't believe how long Suffering in Silence has now been on the air. But yeah, I am always privileged and honored to do work alongside my co-hosts and, of course, Tia herself in this advocacy space. It's so important, and I think the more that we talk about it, hopefully the more resources become available for people, and if only one person hears it, that it be the right person. So I have my own show called The Human Experience, and I just really value storytelling and the power that it has to bring human connection and compassion. So again, always happy to be here.
Thank you. So, Nicole, we can just go right into our resources, and Mark and Ayana can just jump in when you get here.
Okay. So we are in the process of raising funds for our nonprofit, Rise Out of the Ashes Incorporated. If you would like to make a tax deductible donation, you can do so through our GoFundMe fundraiser, or you can write a check made payable to Rise Out of the Ashes Incorporated, which is P.O. Box 15, Drexel Hill, PA 19026. One of our endeavors is providing immediate emergency funding, doctor visits, transportation, food, clothing, school supplies, medication, personal toiletries, utilities, rent, mortgage payments, and education. A few of our resources are Substance Abuse Mental Health Services National Helpline. Their number is 800-662-4357. Again, that's Substance Abuse Mental Health Services National Helpline, 800-662-4357. Befrienders Volunteer Action to Prevent Suicide. To find helpline by country, visit www.befrienders.org. That's Befrienders Volunteer Action to Prevent Suicide. To find helpline by country, visit www.befrienders, that's BEFRIENDERS.org. There's the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is www.hotline.org. And that's 1-800-799-7233. And the Canadian Women's Foundation, CanadianWomen.org, 1-866-293-4483. And their email is info@CanadianWomen.org. And our final resource is the UK National Domestic Abuse Hotline, which is www.nationaldahelpline.org.uk. And the number is 080820000247.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Mhm.
So again, our topic we're talking about stalking on tonight. We want to revisit our working definitions. So from Psychology Today, stalking is a pattern of unwanted contact or behavior that leads someone to feel upset, anxious, or scared for their safety. From New South Wales Government, stalking is defined as a persistent course of conduct or actions by a person intended to maintain contact with or exert control over another person, causing distress, fear, or harassment. The behavior often occurs repeatedly and can include unwanted communication or monitoring. It is considered a form of emotional abuse and can significantly impact the victim's sense of security and autonomy. So, as we know, we've said January, at least in the United States, is National Stalking Awareness Month, which focuses on recognizing and bringing attention to stalking as a significant form of abuse and raising support for survivors. So, on tonight, we wanted to talk about the issue of the slowness of bureaucracy or bureaucracy itself just not working for victims and survivors of domestic violence and stalking. So that's the thought for this evening. So, ladies, who wants to jump in there first?
I'm going to let Jennifer go first.
That's perfectly fine. I am happy to get on my soapbox here. It's an endlessly frustrating experience, and I think one of the things that we try to remember as victims and survivors, but then also in becoming advocates, is that when you're on the outside of something, there's no way for you to actually walk through what somebody else is walking through, even if you understand it. Like, even if you've had your own experience, even if you have walked through something similar yourself, there is no way for you to understand the toll that it takes on a person. And I fear that within bureaucracy, when we talk about the systems that are set up to hopefully, theoretically and ideally protect people, I think there's a desensitization that comes automatically through that, unfortunately. And so it's really difficult to get people to care about your specific situation. The problem is that when you're going through this, it is the most important and all-consuming thing in your life, right? Like, you are surviving and not much else. It is a struggle to get through the day. And so when you're going to these systems where your whole life you've been told, if this happens, these are the places that you can go. These are the people that will help you. These are the systems that are specifically set up to make sure that you get justice, that you get healing, that you get um, a resolution. And then when you actually get to that point where you need to use those systems, you walk in and find that not only are they lacking in a certain type of empathy or compassion a lot of times, but beyond that, they rarely work. They don't work the way that we are told that they are going to work. And we don't usually find that out until we actually need them. And I think that's
Right.
what's so difficult for people, is that you don't know that these systems don't work until you actually need them, and then you're stuck.
Here.
I think we can tie it.
Okay, they could hear me, but I couldn't hear. I couldn't
You
hear
can tie
them.
it into
That was the problem.
we can tie it into different issues. We can talk about domestic violence and stalking. We can talk about homelessness,
It's
human
background in your
trafficking,
on your phone, yeah, but
where
I can't
whatever
really make it
system
out
is
well.
set up, even if it's public assistance, when you step into the
You know what? Let me
office,
try to link in from another computer. Hold on.
it
I'm
sounds
gonna I'm
really
gonna get
good.
out. I'll come back in a minute.
When you need this help and you're going through it, it sounds good. It looks good on paper. But as you said, as you try to navigate the system, it's just it falls apart. And the
Mhm.
individuals, unfortunately, um, don't have knowledge of dealing with trauma informed issues, don't have the sensitivity, or it's like showing up to a job and you're not caring about the person in front of you. Um, so yeah, it's red tape. It's
Yeah.
red
Mhm.
tape.
I would
So
also add that, like, something that I see happening over and over again is like we all base our perspectives off of our lived experience, right? And so your lived experience as somebody in a system, an officer, a lawyer, a judge, an advocate, whatever, your experience with people within a system does not mean that you understand what it is to actually walk through these things,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Like, you are meeting people at their worst. And so
Right.
you're expecting them to be the perfect victim. Like, over and over again, we see that play out in our culture. We expect people to be perfect victims. And when they aren't, we want to throw our hands up and say, well, see, we can't help them
Mm-hmm.
because
Mhm.
they've got their own problems. Like, they need to figure it out. But the reality is that these people, once again, are barely surviving. It's all they're doing. And your interaction with them is not the same thing as them actually experiencing the violence.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nicole?
I was just going to add to that that I think the other issue or the other major issue with it is that where's the checks and balances with those who are supposed to be operating, and where is the accountability? So, along with the lack of empathy and the lack of them really fully understanding what it is to be a victim or survivor, no one is. It doesn't seem like the right amount of checks and balances is taking place, which is where we find people falling through the cracks or it coming off as there's more protection for the abuser than there is for the one that's been going through the situation. So it's very it can be very frustrating and defeating feeling. It's more of a sinking feeling when the people that you're going to are just as cavalier as the abusers. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I think that the that's the whole thing, right? Especially like as Americans, we're told that there are all of these checks and balances. That's how the system is set up and that's how it's built to work. And so you can have faith in the system because
Mhm.
it's built for you.
Mhm.
And first of all, I don't think that's true. But
Mhm.
I think that second of all, you know, it's still run by humans. And so
Right.
we're still contending with people bringing their own stuff into these systems. And so we want to act like they're these objective, fact based things that people aren't bringing their own preconceived notions or their own lived experience into. And, sometimes lived experience can be really helpful, but it can
Mhm.
also really color our perception of things in a way that is unhelpful if we don't have a broad experience with something.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I think that's where the trauma informed training comes in. And I mean, I know you can't expect that type of training across the board, throughout all businesses or organizations. But if you are specifically set up to deal with victims who have experienced domestic violence, who are experiencing stalking, you need to know how to interact with these individuals. Like there should be no question. No one should come into you in the words out of your mouth, or, well, this isn't part of my job. This isn't what I do. Or,
Right.
I don't understand why you're there. Well,
Mhm.
why did you give him your phone number in the first place? Why did you give him your contact information? Why does this person know? I don't need you to ask me a bunch of questions. I don't need you to judge me. I don't need you to tell me, well, it would have never happened to me. I would have never allowed that. That's insulting. It's absolutely insulting. And then on top of that, you have people that you have to deal with, but then you have the paperwork. You have the even to walk into an office. Some of the buildings that we go into are intimidating by themselves. You walk into a courtroom. Every courtroom that I have seen, that I have been in, it's massive. The room itself is massive. You have this huge um, bar in front of you where the judge is sitting up high looking down. It's just the appearance of the room is just overwhelming. And then you have the judge, you have the lawyers, or if you're in an office space, you have these people around who are just a million things going on at the same time. You got somebody talking about what I'm going to do for dinner, and somebody talking about their kids, and somebody talking about whatever, but I'm here because my life is in danger.
Right.
And then the paperwork that you have to fill out. It's like it makes no sense. As much that you have to fill out forms, and you have to sign this and you have to sign that, and it's like, how can you be so heightened and so worked up, and then be expected to read through everything that's in front of you and understand everything that's in front of you. And then it's like it's a time crunch. Like, I got to do this now. I got to get this done because I need to sit in front of the judge. I have to get this done because I need the police here and I need this report. I have to get this done because I need whatever help it is that I'm getting from this organization, be it counseling, be it financial assistance. So it's like you don't even have time to process what it is that you're dealing with. And then the system that's supposed to be set up to help you, you have the people, you have the paperwork, you have the atmosphere, and that all works against, in my mind, it works against the victim, because it's like I can't even show that I'm upset. I can't show that I'm scared. I can't show that I'm hurt. And then at the on the other side of the coin, I can't show that I'm trying to be strong through this. I can't show that I'm trying to, hold the tears in and just get through it, because then I'm told, well, you don't look like a victim. But if I ball up in a corner and I cry, and I don't function, then it's like, well, why don't you get up and do something for yourself? Mm-hmm. So it's like you just can't win. You just cannot win. But just these systems, it's like, again, I think, Nicole, you said it's like set up against the victim. It's like every step that you take, the perpetrator is being protected in some kind of way. And I think even just having to walk this long road of things being discombobulated, systems not working together, people not talking together who are supposed to help you, that's, in a way, that confusion that is caused for the victim, that's like helping a perpetrator too, because it's like you're so stuck in trying to get justice for yourself and trying to get the righteousness to move forward. You're bogged down with, do I really have to explain to you how I met this person and how the relationship evolved? Like, is that important right now? And I think that's another way that the perpetrator is protected, or attention is taken off of the real issue, because then you're focusing on things that don't make sense. And it really is very, very it is difficult. It's hard to be in a position where you need help, you need these people in front of you, but they're intimidating at the same time. They're in some cases they're nasty, don't want to be there, or uninformed. Somebody being uninformed can cause harm to a victim or a survivor of stalking, because you don't know the law, because you don't know how you should react or how you should conduct yourself. You can cause harm. You can cause damage. And there are people who give wrong. I've seen police officers give wrong information to individuals. Police officers have told women, you can't get a protection from abuse order if you have not been physically harmed. Like there are women who have been told he's showing up at your home, but that's not cause for you to get protection from abuse order. Yes, it is. You don't have to be physically harmed. The harm comes when that unwanted contact continues. When I have been very clear, leave me alone. This is it. I don't want a call. I don't want an email. I don't want to talk. I don't want anything. The harm, the threat is implied when you keep going, when you keep moving forward. So to have people believe you have to be physically harmed before you can get a protection from abuse order, that's wrong. And we have officers giving that information because they don't know. They're not informed. And trauma informed training is not mandatory for a lot of individuals holding positions where you would think it should be. It should be mandatory for all police officers, no matter what state you're in. It should be mandatory for all judges, for all lawyers. I mean, if you are specifically dealing with cases that involve domestic violence and stalking, you should be trauma informed. You should be trained. It should be mandatory for counselors who say, I am dealing with domestic violence. It should be.
Absolutely.
And then I think, Nicole, you said, you mentioned checks and balances. Yes, it should be. But then who on the other side is making sure that this is happening?
Right.
It's just, it's open-ended. I think there are too many questions. You know, Jen, you said earlier, we've been doing this for a long time. We've been doing this program for 5 years. And in some cases, I feel like there has not been much progress made with trying to get people to understand exactly what domestic violence and stalking is. Um, it's disheartening, to say the least. Um, but I think another issue when we get to the bureaucracy, I wanted to talk about the issue of victims and survivors who just may not have the skills. It may not have the wherewithal or the resources to navigate and to get through those systems through no fault of their own. I mean, if you've never been in a courtroom, why would you know how the process is supposed to work? If you've never been stalked before, you've never, domestic violence hasn't occurred before, why would you know what to do and how to do it? And so that's a problem, that information is not ready made available, because when you need it, like, that's not the moment to be trying to learn, and figure it out. And I don't think you can put that onus on a victim. That's why people in those positions, that's the counselors, the police officers, the lawyers, that's why they should know. They should understand. They should be able to walk the victim through what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. You can expect a victim to know, and I think that that's unfair. That's my thought on that, Jen.
Yeah. I think that, it's really interesting as we're talking. The thing that keeps coming to my mind is, at least in the United States, so our healthcare system, which is a whole other topic that I won't go too far into, but just to say, your insurance company can deny a claim for you, and they don't have to necessarily have any information, right? Like, they don't have to be doctors necessarily. They don't have to have medical knowledge. So your doctor is ordering something for you, and you submit the claim via insurance, and they deny you. And it's like, how can you deny? You are not experiencing what I'm experiencing. But there is this whole system built around, well, our job is to make sure that the right people get the right care and that there is no fraud. And I think with that type of rhetoric, which I think we also see in the things that we're talking about, is we're placing so much emphasis on what could go wrong if people abuse the system, that we're not actually effectively utilizing the system to do the right thing and do the thing that it was supposedly made to do. As far as domestic violence goes, we know that the rate of false report is so much lower than we pretend it is, or like we talk about it is in society. And to take that even a step further, we know that most people don't report because they don't have faith that anything is going to happen, or they have been told that unless you can prove that he has, hit you and you have the bruises to show it, like nothing's going to happen. Or you have people that have tried once or twice and it hasn't gotten anywhere, and it's made their life worse. So why would they continue to try? So I think that one of the things that we have to get away from culturally is this idea that everybody, or at least like most people, are out to abuse the system. Are there always going to be people like that? Sure. But it's not the numbers that we actually pretend it is, right? I think it's just a convenient way for us to not have to look these things in the face and say, wow, this is far more prevalent than we want to pretend it is.
Yeah. So, Nicole, you want to share your thoughts, and then Mark, we're gonna go to you after Nicole.
I was just going to say that's a really great point. I think that there is just this huge just lack lack in an overall sense of just making sure that things are working the way that they're supposed to, and even in the idea of the checks and balances, and it being more people abusing the system more so than those who are not, and it's just, to me, that's just ridiculous. It's buffoonery. It's just another excuse that's being used, and like you said, Jen, that they're just an excuse to not do what they're supposed to be doing. So how do they start to look at the real statistics of what's happening? How do they be more proactive as opposed to just being reactive? Like, how do we educate more people, not just when this issue happens, but educating just society as a whole on one, the definitions, which is so important, even that Tia is sharing the definitions of what stalking actually is, because people are so misinformed and they think that it's, has to be more than what it actually is. So I appreciate, even the sharing of the definition so that people have a better understanding of what it is. And even, I mean, this is a little bit kind of to the left, but even when I see things on social media now, there's so many younger people that are actually doing stalking and recording what they're doing, what they're saying, this crazy behavior. And for them, that's normal. And it's like, no, this is stalking. Like, what are you doing? You're calling this guy 50, 60 times back to back. He's already told you he's not interested. Like, it's the men and the women. So just education on a broader sense needs to be normalized in situations. If we can have gun violence and active shooter training in schools, why can't we also talk about situations like this, stalking, which impacts the whole family?
Right.
So,
Mark, so we're talking about the slowness of bureaucracy and it working, not working, and the issues of victims and survivors who don't have the wherewithal to work through these systems. So, can you give us your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, great. I've been having some technical problems, so apologies. I haven't been in tune with a lot of the conversations, so thank you for clarifying that. As far as bureaucracies go, um, I mean, bureaucracies serve a purpose in the universe. They're supposed to make life easier for us, and I think to a degree that's true. The problem with bureaucracies is the minute that you step outside of the parameters of what the people are supposed to be able to deal with. In other words, as soon as there's some kind of an exceptional circumstance, the bureaucracy breaks down. People don't know how to react. People don't want to take responsibility because now you're asking them to step outside of what they're authorized to do. And so now they have to go to their boss, go to the boss's boss, and go to the boss's boss's boss. And so you get caught up and ground up in the wheels of the machinery. So what I'm saying, as far as bureaucracies go, is they're good to a limited extent, but there also is the personal dynamic. And I did hear you folks speaking about, and I applaud the idea of having clear definitions, because as Nicole was pointing out, we're watching people who don't have a clear definition, that think, I was looking at one statistic, and I actually forget it now, but I think it's 10% of partners, people in relationships, are actually tracking their partner. And this isn't even stalking per se, because there's no reason they're in the relationship, but that speaks to high levels of mistrust. And so if you mistrust a person to the degree where you feel you need to monitor their phones, um, let's be honest, illegally, um, then you probably shouldn't be in that relationship.
Right.
I'm not trying to give counseling advice here, but I mean, it just does. If you can't trust a person, then you probably shouldn't be in a relationship that requires trust. So, I mean, these are just some of the thoughts that are bouncing around in my head as I'm listening to the conversation. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that having to deal with the systems that aren't working for the victims in the way that they should. And I think especially if it comes to an experience that's out of the box,
Hmm.
when the victim is not supported or believed, I want to touch on how that affects victims, which is not positive at all. And as I share this information, I want to share my resources first, so I can get that out there. But Sejong Cho and Shannon Harper, October 2025, they wrote an article called Stalking and Its Impact on Victim Fear and Emotional Distress, an advanced latent class analysis of National Crime Victimization Survey. And this is with the American Journal of Criminal Justice. And then Sharon Smith, Mark Stevens, Zen Yu, Jeru Chen, Kathleen Basil, Matthew Breeding, and Sha Zhu. They wrote an article. It's the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey. This is from September 2025. It is the 2023-2024 Stalking Data Brief. And this is with the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And there is a lot of good information in that. So I would suggest that you go to the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and look this article up, this survey, because they shared a lot of good information in it. But from these resources, basically the results of stalking victims not being believed or supported. Victims of stalking often face barriers to receiving support and justice. Victims often report feeling unsupported when they attempt to report their experiences to law enforcement, with many feeling that their cases are not taken seriously or that they are not referred for appropriate help. These findings highlight the significant challenges that stalking victims encounter in accessing the support and resources that they need to heal and move forward. Uh, the the prevalence of stalking, victimization, this is in the United States. So this is for women and men in the United States. More than 1 in 5 women, which is 22.5%, or 28.8 million in the United States, have experienced stalking during their lifetimes. In the 12 months before the survey was done, 1 in 20 women, which is 5.5%, or 7 million, were stalked. Among the reportable states, all but one state, women's lifetime stalking prevalence estimates range from 15.6% to 35.2%. Approximately 1 in 10 men, which is 9.7%, or about 11.9 million in the United States, have experienced stalking in their lifetime. In the 12 months prior to the survey, about 1 in 33 men, which is 3%, or 3.7 million, were stalked. Across the states, men's lifetime estimates of stalking were only reportable in California, where the prevalence was 10.6%, 95% CI, 6.5, 17, indicating that an estimated 1,560,000 men in California alone have experienced stalking at some point in their lives.
Wow.
Nearly all female stalking victims, 98.7%, felt afraid, threatened, or concerned for their safety or the safety of others. Additionally, more than half, 52.4%, of the victims were threatened with physical harm as a direct result of the perpetrator's behaviors. Most
Mm.
female victims, 85.2%, suffered mental or emotional harm. More than 9 in 10 male stalking victims felt afraid, threatened, or concerned for their safety or the safety of others, 91.4%. And nearly 2 in 3 were threatened with physical harm, 63.8%. As a direct result of the perpetrator's behaviors, most male victims, 71.6%, suffered mental or emotional harm.
Mm.
We like numbers. We like to see percentages. So these percentages don't lie. Stalking is real. Stalking happens among men, it happens among women. Men and women can be and are perpetrators. And when you don't have the support, you suffer in silence, and you suffer in a hole. And the people that are supposed to be there to help you, that neglect just adds a mental and emotional stress on top of what it is that you're already dealing with. To work up the nerve, to work up the courage to do what you need to do for yourself. To first of all say and admit, yes, I am being stalked. I want this to stop. I need help. And then to not be believed, or to not be taken seriously, or to say, well, it'll blow over. It's no big deal. It's only a few phone calls. Just don't answer your phone or change your phone number. Why should I have to change my phone number?
Right.
Should I have to move?
Yeah.
Why should I
Yeah.
have to change where I work, the way that I go home, and why do I have to change my routine for this person who is stalking me? Where's my justice as a human being? Where is my justice? Where is my right to live? So, Mark, if you would go next with with your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, and I just when you're talking about stats, the thing that was coming to mind was that when you're the stats that you're using, I was doing some reading earlier today that less than 40% of stalking victims actually report this to the police. So when you're using your stats, that's less than 40% of the people who are
Mhm.
actually being stalked. And of that, now follow the numbers, right? 40%,
Right.
less than 40% are reporting it. Of that, approximately 20% result in an arrest. And the number that I saw that I had here was 12% of those result in criminal prosecution. Now, when you that if that was 12%, meaning 12 out of every 100, no, it's not 12 out of every 100, because less
Right.
than 4 out of every 10 or 40 out of every 100 are even reporting it. So these are crazy numbers when you start thinking about it. And thank you, by the way, for mentioning that men are stalked too, because they are in far fewer
Yes.
numbers than women. But it's real. It's real across the board. And as I was saying, well, I mean, part of this is 60 over 60% of the females who are stalked by a current or former intimate partner, and slightly over 40% of the male victims, same thing. So again, it's going back to that: be careful who you're talking to and who you're meeting in that bar or in the restaurant, or hey, even in the workplace, right? I mean, and if someone's telling you, some stuff, keep your signals up. You may feel an attraction, but if you're listening to the conversation and you're hearing well, my former girlfriend had a lawsuit on me. Maybe you should be paying special attention. You know, maybe she had a reason. And again, I'm not trying to say that that's an absolute, but be discerning is what I'm saying. I think we have a propensity to want to jump in. And look, I get it. People are lonely. People are divorced, and again, even those stats, divorced people are more likely to be stalked than single. Was something else I was reading, which I thought was interesting because that speaks to kind of the psychology of people, right? They've been through relationships, probably bad. If they're divorced, it's gone bad, and here they are, and they're going after another bad relationship. And so again, this is tough stuff, and we all have needs and we all have wants that we're trying to satisfy, but we have to try to look at those through a critical lens and be objective and be open and honest with ourselves. Um, and that's that can be difficult to do.
Yeah. And so with that, Mark, I want to point out that there are different types and cases and situations of stalking. It's not always
Hmm.
romantic. It's not
Hmm.
always a couple. There are coworkers who stalk each other,
Right.
college kids who stalk each other, people who are supposed to be friends, family members stalking one another. So there
Yep.
are a plethora of different reasons and situations, and you do want to be mindful. You want to keep your guard up in a healthy way. You really want to, but at the end of the day, you can't control other people and what they do. When I go to work and I sit down in my cubicle, I'm minding my business,
Mhm.
and
Right.
then somebody's following me around. Um, it's like you do want to take precaution, and then just living life. There are some things that are out of your hands, but I think that's a part of education, as Nicole was talking about before. We need to understand that there are a plethora of situations that you can put in a category of stalking. It's not always we went out on a date.
Right.
Sometimes I was just minding my business. I went to the market and turned around and somebody's following me down the aisle. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's I went to work, or I went with some friends to a game, or whatever it is. A lot of situations you do know the person who is doing the stalking, and then sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's a stranger. You don't always know. You don't always have a relationship or knowledge of the person. So I think that's,
That's a good
again,
point.
a part of education, as Nicole was saying. We need to know what it is. We need to know how it can happen, how it can occur before it actually happens. We need some knowledge. Because again, we do have some kids who are stalking each other and they don't even know that it's actually stalking. We have
Mhm.
Right.
adults who really don't even know it's actually stalking. Okay,
Mhm.
that it's not persistence. It's not showing my love when you've called me 1,000 times, or if you called me 3 times and I didn't want those calls.
Hmm.
It is not beautiful. Like Valentine's Day is coming up. Sending me
Mhm.
candy and chocolates and flowers when I've expressed to you already I don't want them. That's not romantic.
Mhm.
It's not. So we do need to learn and know what it is. But again, on the other side, we still have officers and lawyers and judges and counselors who need to learn and need to know what stalking is, as well. Again, Jen, we've been doing a radio program for 5 years. We've been doing advocacy work for much longer than that. And still, I personally find I'm still in a position where, to me, it's like it's common sense. Like, you've been listening to me. Like, there are some individuals, some organizations, you have been listening to me for years. You have been seeing others for years, yet your behavior has not changed. Yet
Mhm.
your way of thinking has not changed. The way that you deal with domestic violence and stalking still has not changed. There are still even pastors in my vicinity who will say the Bible doesn't say anything about domestic violence. Yes, it does. Have you not been listening to
Right.
to me? Have you not? So it's we do want to keep doing what we do. We do want to have the awareness, but it's like you can't force someone to open their eyes. You can't force them to see and understand.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
and it's interesting you say that. I hope I wasn't inferring that these are all romantic aspects, because I'm certainly not coming down that road. I know I was talking
no,
about
no.
that.
I just wanted to point out that
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
because I think the romantic part is, I think that's the first thing that comes to mind when we think about
right.
stalking. And I mean, it's not that it's not good reason to think that way, because that's what we see most of the time. But
And
I'm just saying it just occurs in other ways too.
actually, I think that's part of the dilemma that's being faced here, and this is why this needs more face time. It has to. We have to be very open about this. I think that part of this is the minute somebody says, "Oh, it's somebody I used to date," that's the minute
Mhm.
eyes close, right? Because
Right,
now
right.
it becomes like a domestic squabble. I'm not getting involved in that,
Hmm.
Mhm.
and law enforcement, I think, or anybody, they say, wait a minute, this is two people who got to figure a way to work it out, and that's
Hmm.
not what we're talking about here. you know this is a question of boundaries. No means no, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And that's simply the way it is. Now, we may have gone on a date. That's the point of dating, isn't it? Is to like look each other over, and most of the time, you don't wind up marrying the first person you date.
Right.
So somebody gets hurt, right? Or it's very rare that it's a mutual breakup. Somebody's got to learn to say, okay, well, when I've been rejected, tough stuff, but I need to move on. Not,
Yeah.
oh, well, if I pursue her or him,
Hmm.
they'll come around. That's I'm not coming around. You know, I'm gonna get a court order is what I'm gonna do, and that's not
Right.
gonna look good. So now, having said that, I don't want to suck up the oxygen here, but I'm just thinking, when this happens in the workplace, this is something, talk about avenues. You can go to HR. Now, look, I'm a person, I always believe in the first instance, talk to the person. Don't go run to HR if you haven't said anything to the person. But when you say to, the person who, say, look, I'm not interested in your advances. Thank you, but no. And you need
Hmm.
to hear me clearly. No means no, because if it happens again, I'm going to escalate it by going to the management or HR. And
Hmm.
and I'm going to tell you, most of the time that's going to stop people. But I think people are afraid of that because they don't want to create a dynamic in the workplace. They don't want to get somebody into trouble. Look, if somebody is stalking you, you're the one in trouble.
Yeah,
It's
but Mark, I think that's another point. It's someone is doing something to make you feel uncomfortable. And it's like, I don't know why we think, all right, I'm trying to be the bigger person. I'm
right.
trying to give the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's a natural thing that just
Hmm.
a normal adult person would do. Like, I'm not trying to blow this up. I'm not trying to,
Right.
move too fast. It's like I want to be sensible about this. But it's like everybody's not you. And I had to learn that myself. Everybody
Hmm.
is not sensible. Everybody is not at that adult stage. So yes, I
Right.
agree wholeheartedly with Mark. You have to do what you have to do for
Hmm.
yourself. Because just because he or she, they're 35, 40 years old, doesn't mean that they're operating and acting like a mature 35 or 40-year old.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so
Right.
if you have to, take that next step, if you have to go to HR, if you have to go to the police, if you have to do something that somebody else would say you're doing too much or it shouldn't take all of that, forget that. You are worth it. Your safety, your peace of mind, your physical safety, your mental and emotional safety, you are worth it. And had you not done whatever it is that you did, had you not continued to stalk me, had you not continued to contact me unwantedly, we wouldn't be in this place. So
Mhm.
Right.
think about yourself. Put yourself
Right.
first. So
Hmm.
we're just under the hour. So as we're leaving, if you guys would just take a couple minutes just to give us your final thought, Nicole, we can start with you and Jen, and then Mark, you can close us out. But yeah, Mark, I love what you just said. To take care of yourself. You are worth it. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'd rather be able to sit down and say, you know what, it was a misunderstanding. I do apologize. I take responsibility and onus for, my actions, you know, but I would rather it be that than to be harmed or hurt and it's irreversible. Yeah.
That's good. Is it okay if I read the definitions again as my final thought?
Yes.
So the definitions of stalking from Psychology Today. Stalking is a pattern of unwanted contact or behavior that leads someone to feel upset, anxious, or scared for their safety. And from the New South Wales government, stalking is defined as a persistent course of conduct or actions by a person intended to maintain contact with or exert control over another person, causing distress, fear, or harassment. This behavior often occurs repeatedly and can include unwanted communication or monitoring. It is considered a form of emotional abuse and can significantly impact the victim's sense of security and autonomy. And I just thought it was important to reiterate what those actual definitions were, even in the close of this. So that's my closing thought.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah, Nicole, I really loved when you brought it in with the younger generations and how they kind of view this. And I will say, I think it's not just the younger generations, but I also think that like everybody being chronically online now is very much a piece of this. Like we have more access to people and people's information than we ever have before. And we probably were not meant to have this much information or access to people. But I think, one of the things that we do is that we romanticize the stalking aspect of romantic relationships. And so I think that whether we like to admit it or not, we are kind of confused about what stalking is and what it isn't, and who can be a stalker or an abuser. And so I think it's important to reiterate those definitions. I also think it's important, and I think somebody already spoke to this earlier on in the show, that we say it doesn't have to be the worst possible outcome for it to be serious and for it to be taken seriously. You don't have to be in active fear for your life for it to be wrong and for it to not be okay. You are allowed to have help, you are allowed to have resources, and you are allowed to put a stop to it before it gets to the point of no return.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Mark, you want to close us tonight?
Sure. I mean, kudos to both of you, to both of you for I agree with everything that was just said. I mean, and just to underscore, depending on where you're pulling your stats from, I mean, somewhere in the neighborhood between 60 and 80% of stalking victims know their offender. And again, just as we were touching on a few minutes ago, no one is going to protect you like you're going to protect yourself. You know when you're uncomfortable. You know when lines have been crossed, even though it may not be your best friend's thought. It may not be your parents' thought. It may not be your kids' thought, on where the lines are crossed. But you know where a line has been crossed. And I think that the fact that most people know their offender actually can be a plus, because, as I said, if you're in a workplace, or if you're a student in a school, or there's a lot of environments where you can actually say, again, in the first instance, I'm a person who believes in going to people and saying, you need to stop because this is going over my line. I don't care if it's going over your line. It's going over my line. And now you've been warned. And the next step isn't going to be a conversation with you. So that depends upon you. And I think people need to make themselves comfortable with taking that kind of stance, because we live in a society where everybody is trying to be the nicest person in the room. And the nicest person in the room, and to Jennifer's point, sometimes it can end in the worst case scenario. This can get ugly fast. And you've got to be thinking, that could be an outcome. Not that I'm not trying to preach paranoia here. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I like to think of myself as an optimistic realist. The chances are it's not going to come out badly. That like it's not going to be worst case scenario, but it's still bad, and
Yeah.
we need to stop it. And if you can't stop it by the conversation, then I'm going to get somebody involved who can stop you. And that's where I'm going to leave it.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here. Love Bay, if you want to catch up on previous episodes on our program, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence TV. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe via whichever platform you are watching us by. We thank you so much for joining Suffering in Silence with Pastor Tia here on on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay, we are rising out of the ashes together. Good evening.